right, welcome back to the VIBE Edu, and the crew is back together for a special episode, which is the mailbag. And we do this between series. We just got done with our professional development series, and that was a 4-parter. So we hope that if you didn't catch that you go back and listen as we talked about things on the campus, district, state, national, and how you can be a presenter yourself at conferences and professional development opportunities. So love that conversation, including a comment. And I'm going to say that toward the end, but I want to make sure that I shouted someone out for that. But I'm going to go into our note section here. And this one is actually from all the way back. If you remember our PBIS conversation, this was a while ago. This was months and months ago. They were asking, how do we make PBIS work for all kids on campus?
Oh, that is the question, isn't it?
I mean, it's a small question. We should be able to just
maybe start by defining PBIS, Josh.
Okay, Josh, define.
Oh, goodness. Well, but the thing is the models look so different. So it's supposed to be a positive base intervention system that is for all students. However, I think that people, and I don't want to assume, but I have heard people on campuses complain that certain students receive positive things and others will never see that. So I think with those positive interventions, do we want to talk about some systems that people have seen on this camera that good or bad have been implemented on campuses that you're either working with or been a part of on that campus itself?
I mean, there's something that I love. I'm gonna start with something that I love first, because I feel like it's so easy for our brains to nitpick, right, at the things that we don't really like about it. When I think of positive behavior intervention supports, I love it when groups at the beginning of the school year, middle school year, they go outside and they're in the actual spaces where they're doing the teaching of what's expected. So here we are all outside on the playground. Let's just talk elementary first. We're on the playground, and this is how it looks and sounds like and feels like when you are playing tetherball. This is what it looks and sounds like. These are the expected behaviors when you're playing handball. When we're in the sandbox, when we're going down the slide, this is what's expected. And explicitly teaching and not expecting that kids just know. And I think that's where my phrase, teach social and emotional skills, don't expect them, really comes into play there. I also love it when we rotate to another area. So now we're all sitting in the lunch area, the cafeteria, the lunch tables, wherever you do lunch, and you're teaching specifically into what's expected. I also love when there's just 3 things. So let's just talk about the eating at the lunch tables. And actually, I love this example. You know, I did my teacher retreat in Santa Fe, and there's a teacher who, her and I were colleagues. We worked the exact same school for a very long time together, and she's part of my community. And she was like, Kim, I still teach PBIS at the lunch tables exactly like you did. And I was like, okay, tell me, what were the 3 things? And she's like, we stay seated the whole time. And I was like, that's one. And I was like, what was it? What's the other one? She's like, you stay in the same seat, one spot. And I was like, and the last one, she's like, you eat your own food. And I was like, beautiful. You got it, sister. That's it. So 3 things. But with those 3 things, I want a hand motion. So we stay in one spot. We stay there the whole time, and you eat your own food. And I just did the hand motions to go with that. If you can have hand motions, you can have 3 things. You also change the tone of your voice when you're teaching it. That's PBIS done really, really well. When you rotate into the hallways and you rotate around the school in all of those areas, what does it look like to get dismissed? Well, be in the area where dismissal actually happens. And again, those 3 things with the hand motions and the tone, that's PBS done right. Teaching into it, not expecting. What you got?
I was going to say that what you just described, the version of that every teacher kind of understands I think the vision for PBIS is where I would start if we want systems to work, period. We need to know why we're doing it. We need to know what it looks like. Staff need to be trained on it. But I would actually say for most things, and I'm all for systems and I'm not against PBIS, but I would say for almost everything that we implement in a school, it's probably not a good expectation that it's absolutely going to work for 100% of the kids. If that was true, we'd have one ELA curriculum and we wouldn't need interventions. That's just one example. What I would rather hear folks discuss around how to get the maximum out of PBIS is back the vision, the training, like Kim is discussing, but then also what are the other things we have in place? We're training our staff on social and emotional learning. We're training our staff on restorative practices. We're training our staff on executive functioning. We're training our staff on all the things that are going to be proactive measures so that PBIS does work when we need to reinforce positively the things that kids are doing that we want them to do. So I think it should come with some other systems aligned to it with a vision and training so that it's pervasive, it's consistent and pervasive in the culture versus expecting it to kind of be this thing and then it works for 100% of the kids. I have not found too many things in a school that work for every single learner.
God, you're so amazing. I need your brain everywhere is what I need. That's what I'm thinking. I wish that every single leader had your brain, because no, it can't just come from a training at the beginning of the school year and a training in the middle, and then the kids have got it, right? And then we're doing nothing else. The teachers need to understand the language and how to teach into the lagging skills of kids. They also need the systems that are going to run and the routines they're going to support in the classroom, right? You need that too. But I was also thinking, when I see teachers praising kids for doing what's expected, right, with your PBIS tickets or your money or your tokens or whatever it is, are you just praising the same kids over and over again that have just got it? Like the lagging skills aren't even there. They got the skills. So you're praising them. And then again, when you're thinking about the kids that are left behind, how are you teaching them? Are they never going to get the tokens and the tickets and the money? And they're never going to get to go to the PBIS store and purchase the fun stuff? Like, that's okay. Is that PBIS done right? That scares me. And I think that mindset shift comes from, TJ, like you were saying, the other trainings that you're getting throughout the school year that support it. It's the mindset shift.
Yeah, the scary thing, and I know Mitch and Josh will jump in here. The scary thing I think about stuff like PBIS is that if it's done well, great. But if it's not done well, it might cause more harm than not doing it at all. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things in schools that's true about. Like, if we don't do it right, it's not worth doing, because it could inadvertently, this is not anybody's intention, it could unintentionally do harm. Yeah. You know, like the kids get the same tokens, treats, whatever it is, and the same kids never get them. And that's not what it's intended to do. And that just makes people feel like they don't belong. I'm not for that. So I want it to be done well, because I want every kid to have a sense of belonging.
Yes.
Yeah. And TJ, to your point, like those checkpoints of professional development also needs to be a reminder, because I think there's inconsistencies with, like, for instance, like if it was the first year, which typically on a PBIS system, the first year is like common areas, right? So you've built out your expectations, you've shared it out to all the students, all the staff, you have them posted, and then the common areas is essentially where all of the staff is making sure that in the hallways, in the cafeteria, outside, all that kind of stuff, they are abiding by these expectations and providing positive reinforcement with whatever system. Typically it's a ticket system to the students. Well, if that's not being done with fidelity, if it's inconsistent, then, like, to your point, it's essentially a perverse system that is now creating a warped PBIS system, and it isn't for all kids. And so then if you go into year 2, typically that's when you're starting to push it into the classrooms. Well, now if I have 100 teachers and I only have 20 of those 100 teachers are actually doing it with consistency and with fidelity, well, that's not a very good outcome in regards to the full student body on how they view PBIS and how it's working for all kids. So I think those checkpoints and the constant professional development, and I would even say adding data to that, because I know when we started adding data to our meetings when we talked about PBIS, that helped a lot of people as far as seeing the improved behavior that we were seeing. And on the back end, kids not doing things that they used to be doing, right? So our referrals are down, our frequent flyers, the repeat offenders are not happening anymore. And we can tie this data into the practices that are happening on this campus. I think that gives a little validity to the system itself for people to be consistent.
I was thinking about check in, check out also. Can I talk
Yep.
about that for a little bit? Because I've been in schools where a teacher, an individual teacher who's been labeled as I'm the PBIS coach, or I am, I don't know, really good with behaviors, right? So therefore I have all these kids that come to me on this check-in, check-out system to have the data, right? And there's nothing that's happening. Like those kids are turning around and going straight. They're running, right? They're running outside after they check in. They're running back to their classroom. They swing open the door. It's a full-on tornado in the classroom, right? And they come back at the end of the day. They earn nothing. They're all pissed off, and the cycle starts again the following day. And my question is always, well, what's missing? And it's usually common language and common systems. Because if every single teacher had the same systems when you walk in the door and when you leave, and also the same language and how to speak to kids, then perhaps your data would show that your check-in, check-out system is actually supporting. And I feel like that's usually the work where we come in. I can see first thing, like that's usually what's missing every single time.
I think for it to work, I think for any program to theoretically work for the majority of students, well, one, leadership plays a big factor, but I think we all have to be clear on the why. And then the brass tacks of the system, like the training, like what's this look like? What are we committing to? All those are important. And research is clear that, we can't expect initiatives to have an impact unless they're implemented by the majority of teachers on campus. That's just the truth. And that's a nod to collective efficacy, which has one of the largest effect sizes. And so it's all spun together. But I do think there's the data piece is important, looking at progress, always coming back to the why. Oh yeah, that's why we're doing this, because you'll start to see modest gains and you forget why. And you start looking at something that maybe feels like a bigger problem that may be totally unrelated, and we need to start talking about that. It's like, no, we can do both maybe. But I think in all of that is the ongoing, like, collegial conversation, just the reminder, especially with PBIS, like what are kids dealing with outside of school? What's the why behind the behaviors that we're trying to turn around? Because it's a grind, right? The day to day, sometimes you can just be like, dude, shut up and sit down, or whatever it might be. Like, can't you, get to class on time, whatever it might be. But I think there's a really important ongoing conversation that a staff needs to have, which is guided and curated by leadership often, that always grounds us, brings us back to the why, and trying to take our personal feelings out of it in terms of the annoyance that can come from certain behaviors. I think that's an important part of the whole thing.
The one last thing I'll say is that, on this topic anyway, is that it needs to be multi-pronged. It needs to be a multi-faceted approach. It can't just be one thing. It can't just be the ticket system. It has to be That's why I was mentioning restorative practices, executive functioning, social and emotional learning. It has to have a multi-pronged approach. And to Mitch's point about leadership, whenever I put an initiative in place, I want to follow up with consistent and pervasive, consistent and pervasive. So I use those two words in particular about the initiative. Are we using it consistently, and is it pervasive? Is it throughout in every classroom? Is it in every learning space? Is it in every common area? And are we doing things consistently? Because a lot of times in schools, initiatives, they'll have seasons. We have a pep rally, so we're doing PBIS, and then all of a sudden we're not doing it. So if it's not pervasive and consistent, it's probably not an initiative that is producing results anyway.
Well, I love your point, TJ, because it should be all intertwined. It should be all connected, and that should be something that's communicated to the staff so that there's understanding that it's not compartmentalized. It's not just a silo initiative, that it is something that is a part of the campus culture. It's a part of all of our initiatives are woven together to make up one tapestry as a school community.
I have a question. Okay, we can add this to the mailbag. You ready?
Sure.
Okay.
We're going to talk about, no, I won't say it.
What? I'm talking about big behaviors. I'm talking about behaviors. Is that okay? I mean, no, I'm not talking about a book study. I'm not, you little stinker. So what are your thoughts on district initiatives? The initiative is, here's the problem. The problem is we have a lot of big behaviors across our campuses, district-wide. And instead of doing proactive strategies, instead of being proactive, our teachers just really need some strategies to put out the big behaviors. What are your thoughts on that?
It's not going to work.
Okay. Give it to me.
I mean, you had the conversation, not to say that there's not specific training for appropriate responses and interventions to big behaviors, but if you're not having at least simultaneously, and I don't know how big these behaviors are, but if they're real big and it's like a physically, like safety is an issue for students and teachers. Yes, there is some like triage training that still keeps the humanity of the dysregulated young person in mind. Like, yeah. Right. There's all of that needs to happen. But if you're not trying to get at, if it's pervasive around the campus, then we got to know why. I mean, we got what's going on here, because people in general don't want to live in a dysregulated state. We have to come back to that, right? So if it's happening, and it may be totally outside of any influence of our own as the district or educators, but we have to, that's that coming back to the conversation, but also getting curious about what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And as our response, or even before that might be just our environments, is there anything we're doing that is exacerbating this issue for a student who's most likely navigating trauma and chaos and to some degree outside of school? Mm-hmm. All those are the important conversations to have. But to just say, how do we equip teachers with strategies to put out the behavior? It just won't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, I think everybody knows that by now. And yet, again, what's that?
Did you read an awesome book called The Language of Behavior? Because it seems like you had some really like core components that.
I don't remember what I read, but I know I read it twice. So I read the digital version on airplanes, and then
that's right.
I got the physical copy and read it again.
Okay, give it to us, Josh. Come on. Give it to me.
No, I think I can say it better than if I tried with Mitch. I mean, for the book, as far as the language of behavior, the first component that we talk about, the tenet one, is the environment, because that's something that we do have control over as an adult. I think a lot of people that are frustrated right now are feeling like, I don't have control over these students. And so, okay, if that's the truth, what is your circle of control? What do you have control over? Well, if you look at your classroom, is there anything that might be a trigger? That could be smells, that could be colors, that could be furniture. I mean, there's some students in some classrooms, Kim, I know you've been in this too, where you go into the classroom and you're like, holy shit. One, there's too many things in this classroom. There's too much furniture. It's too cluttered. There's too many things on the wall, to TJ's point in previous episodes. In addition to the fact that some people may come in, the kid sits down and the first thought they have is, how do I get outside this door as quickly as possible in case of emergency when I don't feel safe? And if you have it barricaded, well, of course, that kid's going to have anxiety every single day that they walk into that classroom and sit in their assigned seat. So things like that you don't even think about are actually pushing into that child's brain to be in a state of survival mode. And if that's what you're already establishing before the bell is even rung, I think you're going to have a tough time as a teacher within that, time slot of time that you're with them. So I think there's just a lot of things that as teachers, we're thinking about the curriculum and thinking about what we're going to do for that day. We're thinking about our supplies. We're thinking about, do we have our copies made? But there are other things that are factors in the child's brain, and it has nothing to do with the educational content that we're providing them. It has to do with survival and how am I going to get through my day? And to Mitch's point, there are things too that are happening at home that we don't have control over, right? I can think of a million stories of horrific things that these kids have to endure at home with their families and in their home lives, that they come to school and school is not the number one thing on their priority list. It is how am I going to eat? How am I going to sleep because I didn't get any sleep? How am I going to, get home safely? How am I going to survive in the home? Because that is a chaotic space for me. And then these kids too, a lot of times don't feel like they have any choices. They don't have any control at home. And then you go to school and then I just have a bunch of adults telling me what to do all day. And I have no control in that space too. So where's the motivation? What am I getting out of school? Why am I here? Right. So when we have to break it down to Mitch's point and we have to go underneath the behavior, a lot of times what we find out is that the kid has so much more that they're dealing with that school is not even on the radar. So what as a teacher can I provide? What resources to make sure that I'm hitting the needs of that child? So that way, then we can get to the things that are expected of everyone, which is, of course, to master the content of that day. I could go on for a lot longer, Kim. So
yeah, it's good. It's good. No, I think that I highlight, underscore everything that has been said so far. I think there needs to be an analysis done. If we regularly have big problems in our school, like things that divert our energy away from what we're supposed to be doing, then we need to do an evaluation of some sort, at least a SWOT analysis, an internal SWOT analysis. But I'd flip the question too to say, what are the small things that we can control that need to be under control that may be leading to these big things and compounding the big things. And then the other thing is I believe this deeply. It's a lot of the work that I've done in schools and districts and as a consultant. 9 out of 10 problems, I would even go as far as saying 9.9 problems in schools are related to teaching and learning. It's not just I would include instruction in that, but I would include the environment, an environment for learning, and every teacher every day and what the classroom looks like. If we double down on instruction, bell to bell, quality teaching and learning, we're going to get rid of the vast majority of the behaviors, the unwanted behaviors. You're still going to have students like Josh described who come to school and they're in crisis. But the vast majority of, I think, students in any school, if we have quality instructional environment and they feel like they're getting a meaningful experience, a meaningful learning experience day in and day out from people who care about them, I just have never seen when we worked on that the behaviors didn't also decrease by numbers like 50 and 60%.
I mean, you know what it is. These are the conversations that I have with the teachers that I work with schools or districts or even in the community. It's giving educators the language that they need, how to have a conversation with a kid in crisis. we don't know how to speak to them. We start spiraling, trying to figure out as the adult, how do I get through to them? What is it that they need me to say? I don't know how to do this. And because of that, the behaviors start to bubble and rise. And instead of everybody trying to figure out what to say in their own sort of way, again, if we had a common language, common systems, and how we support kids, then you would stop being a firefighter and you would really truly get under and get to the root of it, of the why. I was thinking of something over the weekend. I saw an ABA therapist who was on Instagram, told the most beautiful story that I think really hits the nail on the head. And she said, if you have a kid who comes to you as a teacher and says, hey, can I take a break? And you know that this kid is a kid who has the big behaviors, right? Who is the eloper, who does yell at you and get in your face, who has a tendency to throw things, chairs, rip down walls, whatever. If you say to this kid, hey, you know what? We're about ready to take our math test and I have to give you directions and I really just need you to sit down right now. Now, us as the adult, as the average teacher, we're thinking we did the right thing. I was calm in the moment. I acknowledged them, but I also told them to go and have a seat. Well, what's going to start to happen? This kid, let's just say, sits back down and it starts brewing and bubbling inside of this kid. And now they're feeling anxious and they're looking at the environment and they're seeing the door that's already has that chair up for them, right? And now all of a sudden they're like, I just need a break. And they're now up in front of your face, yelling at you. Or maybe they do throw their hands on the desk and they stand up and they start to stomp away or something like that. What did you just do? You said now, okay, fine, take a break. You also taught this kid that their behavior needs to be big, bad, and ugly for them in order to get what they need, a break. But they politely asked you before, and you said no. Now, you as the adult said calmly, and you knew that you had to get through the directions for the math test, but you also inadvertently taught that kid the need to get big and bad and ugly for them to get what they need. What they need. That kid needed a break. And I sat there watching this, you guys, over the weekend, and I was like, every single teacher needs to hear that story because we do think that we're doing the right thing. We do think that, like, I just need to get through this. It's okay. Like, you've got this. But at the same time, look what you're teaching. Look then what you're teaching. And it's not like we're just teaching curriculum. We're also teaching into behavior every single day.
Yeah.
Well, instead of being a firefighter, you're actually a fire starter. And
Yeah.
I think there's a perception that needs to be switched there because I think a lot of people are like, oh, this kid's now escalating, so I'm gonna put out the fire.
Yep.
But your actions as an adult actually caused the fire to start or to escalate to burn bigger and greater. And I can think of, again, a million examples of where an interaction could have been de-escalated based on the signs that should have been seen by tone of voice, posture, all these different things that the kid is exhibiting, but instead it's amplified to a much greater state, and then it's now pushed on the kid as it's all of their fault. They need to fix it. Whereas as an adult, hopefully we have training enough to understand, to your point, Kim, is they may have already communicated the need. We just dismissed it because it was inconvenient to me as the adult versus this is something I could provide to the kid who needs it in that moment. DJ, you're going to say something?
No, I was just going to say it's a super common scenario. It might not be that with the kid in the break, but it's all over the place. It's back to your question and why I want to solve the small things, because I'd say it's the small thing ahead of that and giving the kid the break that if we don't solve for that is going to create the big thing. And I know somebody listening is going to say, yeah, but then the kid doesn't get the math directions for the test. And I'm going to say, yeah, but they didn't get them anyway because they slammed their hands on the desk and left the room. And so I actually think back to PBIS, not only does that kid get the break in the moment, they also get a ticket or whatever the system calls for, because they used their break system when they needed a break and not told
and they asked for it appropriately.
Or they asked for it appropriately. So I'm giving the kid a break and a kudos.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah, because they actually tried to speak up for themselves, right? So isn't that what we're trying to teach them? I mean, to Kim's point, it's beyond the curriculum. Maybe these are just natural skills that they need to advocate for themselves later in life.
Right.
Don't we all need that?
Yes.
All right.
What's next?
Looking at the time, I'm going to real quick, since we're talking about PBIS, I want to highlight this because I haven't even announced this on social media, but I'm going to be the closing keynote for the California PBIS conference. So I'm going to be doing the keynote there on Friday, October 9th. I'm going to be in Mitch's backyard. I'm going to actually get to see him in person. So that'll be amazing event, and I can't wait for us to head over there for that. So just want to highlight that real quick before I go into the next comment. This is actually for Mitch. So be prepared, buddy. This is from Jen Schrader, and she asks, do you have any tips or resources to help your own teen, high school senior heading to college with executive functioning skills? Very specific here for you, buddy.
Yeah. I get that question a lot. But I guess without having any context, and I know this teacher is not thinking this, but I think a mistake can happen when kids have successfully graduated, been accepted to a college, and off they go. And you think like, oh, they're going to be successful, but you're kind of, if a student struggles with executive dysfunction, which we all do to some degree, but specific to like academics, which comes, that's time management, that's organization, that's goal setting, self-regulation. It can be kind of a perfect storm in that if you think about college, as a young person or any person going into that learning environment, you're met with professors who usually are content experts, if not PhDs, with little to no pedagogy training, little to no exposure to the things we talk about on this podcast. Yeah. And so they're ill-equipped to help that student, which is why I personally think we need to think about, in terms of executive functions, we have to think of not K-12, but at least K-14, just developmentally, like the biology of our brains, but even K-16, because so often, myself included, and I'm sure I can't remember for you all, but like it wasn't until graduate school, after college, that I started figuring out how to be successful. So yeah, the only advice I can give without knowing context is, of course, don't just send them off and think they'll be okay. And the same conversations that we try to have with our teenagers in middle school and high school around, executive functioning skills at school, like how are you organizing yourself, all those, I would continue those conversations. I'm a believer that this work, when I say this work, executive functioning, is best done in the tier 1. It's done at school and supported at home and or in tier 2, tier 3 in special ed, as opposed to it being done outside of the core content that purposeful, effortful, rigorous curriculum at any grade level that we're trying to engage students in, to try to focus and develop executive functions separate from that for that context. It's always just seems like it's a little bit forced. So, but at a minimum, keep the conversation going. And I actually know students when they get to college having these conversations with their parents that will buy an organized binder because the kid's seeing the value in it now. Whereas maybe when you're younger, it's like, I don't want to do that. No, we're not doing that at school. I don't want to come home from school and organize my table of contents and look at my calendar and, like that's school stuff. I want to go outside and play, but now I'm in college, shit's getting real. Sometimes they can see the value in that and start to implement it themselves.
I want to piggyback on it because I know this Jen Schrader and I know her son at least a little bit. And he is a soccer player, similar to my son when he didn't have a broken arm. And a conversation we had just recently over the weekend was around managing our time making sure that we understand what things look like to be done, and then figuring out a plan in place so that we can check the boxes and go through so that we finish out all the things that we need to do. And one of the things that him and I decided to do, and this is, this is a teenager we're talking about, and a boy and a mama. So I said, well, I need a new planner because mine is like out, and I am old school and I like a paper planner. And I was thinking, what if we got the same planner? I'm sure we can find the same planner. I can get a pink one. You can get your favorite color, which my son's favorite color is blue. What if we got these planners together and we kind of like dabbled in this new sort of routine together? He was open. He said, okay, reluctantly. The next day, Amazon delivered those 2 planners and we opened them out together, sitting on the floor. He hated the first page. I was like, rip it out. Rip it out. It's weird. It's like hologrammy. It's not cool. Like, rip that out. Fine, whatever, done. And we kind of went through, and I know Jen could do this with her son too, went through just like the layout of what this looks like. Oh, what do you notice? There's this calendar here. What might you put there? Cool. There's this day by day in the week. What might you put here? And it was really interesting to get into my son's brain. And he was like, okay, well, I'd put these types of things here, my soccer practice or whatever. These things would go here. And what I said, and I think this is the missing piece so often, and we do expect this, is, again, what does it look like to be done? And I said, okay, if you have this project, it's a big poster for the ecosystem, it's like whatever, and you have to do it. Let's just draw that out really quickly, what that looks like on the done date. And then you also have this test for social studies. Okay, great. And it's on what date? Okay. And draw the picture. Again, what things look like to be done. It's a 6-page report. Let's just say college, right? It's a 6-page report. It's just the introduction. Just draw that out and lay it out. And when you can visually see what it looks like to be done, you can work backwards and figure out how much time it's going to take to do all of those things. And then you have your step-by-step, day to day. That is tricky for people to do. That is really, really tricky. And if you can sit down, Jen, if you're listening, even right now, you have your kiddo at home for a month and a half, whatever that looks like, you can start laying down that foundation now. And I know your child will be like, okay, I can kind of do this. I've got this.
I'll piggyback on that, just brass tacks with college. If the kid's going away, it looks a little different. If they're staying home and going to school, either way, Jen, make sure you let's say the kid's going away, jump on a Zoom with each course syllabus. Definitely have a planner. You got to have a planner, right? Making this quantum leap to college, and just teach your kid how to go through and identify what are all the major due dates. Put it in the planner for all your classes. And then what are you supposed to have read by week 15 in this particular class? And it seems like a lot, but then it's not.
Right.
You're doing it together, right? And then the reminder for the kid is now all you have to do is just make sure you look at your planner every day. That's it. Just look at your planner. 4 of us do that. I look at my planner all the time because I have to, right?
Yeah.
All the time.
And I can rely on myself to know that if something's important, I will have put it on my planner 2 months ago. And so when I look, I'm like, oh yeah. Like right before this call, I'm having a chat with a special education teacher in Maine that met me in New York when I was speaking there. It's like, I wouldn't have remembered that, but it's on the planner. All I have to do is look at the planner. It's the same thing. So many of those, especially the planner in college. So that's a start.
Yeah, that's good.
Can I just add two technical tips, and then I know we're at time.
Yep.
The first technical tip is when your kid goes away to college, whether it's away or the local university, there's typically at a lot of places a freshman seminar, first year student seminar, and not a lot of universities make that required. That'd be something I would talk about at home in terms of taking that, because typically the things in that are how to interact at college, how to unpack a syllabus, how to access the career center and the counseling center, how to build your schedule. They typically go over that for first year students. I like it actually when colleges and universities require it, because then it doesn't feel like something that not everybody needs, but I need, right? Because everybody needs it. Let's be serious about it. And then the second technical tip, and this wasn't an idea that I had, it was something I learned, was especially if your student has some executive dysfunction and they're going away to college, pick a time, a day and time every week that you're gonna get together, whether it's virtual or over the phone. So it could be Saturday at 10 a.m. or it could be Sunday at 1. And then the effect of that is really important in terms they have to manage that. So it's one thing that they have to manage. So now we know they're going to manage to meet with us, and we don't use that time to micromanage them. We use that time for the big rocks. Like, are you taking care of yourself and having fun? That matters. Are you going to class on time? Are you turning your work in? Like, those 3 things we can talk about every time. Plus we can talk about the family dog and what we're doing and what you're doing this week and sports and all of the things that we want to talk about, but kind of forces some family time as a check-in, not micromanagement. And that doesn't work for every kid. Like, I'm never going to say that works for everybody, but for kids who need to learn to function at college and haven't learned that yet, laying the groundwork like these folks have shared is critical. But then when they're there, having some stability around their experience sometimes works. And I learned that from a first year college expert who said it to every parent she ever met. And she did say there's a lot of kids that they don't need to check in with you once a week, but kids who do, make that a rock, make that a pillar.
So good. So good.
Awesome. Well, I think it's a perfect way to close. I will say that as a student that failed multiple organizational classes in middle school and in high school, or got D's, I shouldn't say failed, I got D's in those classes, that those skills did come together in my college years and into my young adulthood. So there's hope, Jen, if those don't exist, that they can still come together in college. So real quick, Kim, before we wrap this up, you had a thank you from someone in regards to county PD. So I just want to throw it your way just for folks to understand that PD exists out there.
Just a reminder that you can go to your county, that there's professional development opportunities available. I think so often, we forget about those things. So there was a teacher who had said, thank you for that. I also wanted to kind of say, are we going to be on a little hiatus, and are we going to transfer these conversations to Facebook? Are we doing that? What are we doing, guys? Over the summer.
We're just doing a live meeting right now.
This is what it really sounds like, guys. Everybody listening.
I think that conversation has occurred, but I don't know if there's been a consensus of what direction we're going.
Look at them. Shy. You're being shy.
The wheels are turning.
Well, I'm always down to keep the conversation going, but I'm one of the problems with that travel wise, for sure. Travel with a capital T.
Travel with a capital T.
Between now and the end of summer, it seems, but certainly the next 4 weeks.
Well, and I have issues also in July. I think I've shared that with the group. With
you definitely have issues.
Travel with the capital T. Also.
I
have so many issues.
I too have issues, but I also.
But you're grounded, teacher.
You're grounded, at least.
I'm grounded. I've been grounded for a long time.
I think I have Facebook, but I can't say I'm on there all that often. So I'm not sure Facebook's a good option.
Yeah, I'm not on Facebook.
I don't even know what that means, transferring this to Facebook.
What I'm thinking is this, and maybe we'll throw it out there to the people who are listening.
Yeah, maybe we can actually throw it in the comment if they agree.
Right. You guys just send me a cute little voice recording, something of your faces. We'll do kind of like everybody gets a week. You put a little something out into, I'll post it in my Facebook group. Everybody can come on over to Becoming the Bison, and we can post it and they can have conversations in there. And then I feel like we'll come back after summer and come together. I don't know. It's just up to you guys. I'm trying to make it easy.
I mean, it's easier for Mitch and I.
Look at TJ.
You guys
Thinking.
confused.
So
We get to
do we
pick
wanna-
a topic and record ourselves and
But just like a minute long something with like a topic, and then people can jump into the comments and talk to you, but you won't even be there. So I'll talk to them. Josh will talk to them. Josh,
I've jumped in there before. I've jumped into the Facebook group, fellas.
Yeah.
Let's let the listeners comment. I can't
All
wait
right.
for that mailbag.
So the idea is that we take a summer hiatus, regroup, and come back in the early fall with school starting. Is that what's being proposed, Kim?
Yes, but I think the people still want to see our faces. So
Yeah.
one week at a time, they can see our faces, and we can pose a little something to keep the conversation going and growing throughout the summer.
There you go. All right. We'd love to hear your ideas real quick too. Kim, do we have any updates for VIBE Edu?
Yes, update for VIBE Edu. VIP tickets are completely sold out. And our sponsors, they have been so incredibly generous, you guys. And so we are always pouring into teachers. If you are a teacher where you're dying to be in the room for a general admission ticket on July 31st from 5:45 until 9 p.m., if you're dying to be in that room and you need some assistance, please contact me, because our donors have sponsored tickets, and we would love to give it to you if you're dying to be in the room and you need help.
All right. I got a special guest to close out the episode.
I know who it is.
All right. Can you say bye, everyone?
Bye.